Heiße meine Brüder und Schwestern des Ordens willkommen. Willkommen in sehr Besuch in der Besoldung. Ich bin ein Karabiner Templar. And today, y'all, we are talking about the infamous Kar98k. Hello, my brothers and sisters of the Order. Welcome back to the Order. And today, we're actually talking about one of my favorite bolt-action rifles. That's right, the Kar98k is still one of my favorite, and apparently one of y'all's favorite Kar98k, since it went into a tie with the Luger. Yeah, think that one through. Now, this is by far one of my favorite of bolt-action rifles in history, seeing the fact these were first designed, well, before World War I. That's right, when many people think of Kar98k, they automatically go to something like the firearm of the SS, and it was made in World War II. No, these things were first designed before World War I. However, were originally designed to be used by cavalry units. In fact, the term Kar in it, or K-A-R, stands for carbine, or Karabiner, which stands for carbine 98, meaning it's a carbine. That's right, many people think of this as a bolt-action rifle. It's a bolt-action carbine, actually, of which fires one of the world's heaviest type of rounds. And that would be none other than 8mm Mauser. This is by far a heavy round. Now I had to put this out here, y'all. This thing is a lot heavier than the infamous 308 Winchester. So, yeah, I do not recommend getting shot by one of these. There could be a fact that you probably won't survive. Now, I want to put this out here, y'all. A big thing I had to put out here is the fact, originally when I bought this, I thought it was a Yugo. That's what I thought when I went to my local gun store, Attlebridge. The guy there said that this is a Yugo bolt-action rifle. They didn't know what it really was. This is not a Yugo bolt-action rifle. Just because it has the Yugo stamped steel on it, like we see right here, doesn't mean it's actually a Yugo. In fact, I had to put this out here. Many people who actually own Yugos don't know what they are really owning. The fact is, this was actually a Kar98 Eastern Capture. The reason I say Eastern Capture is because, one, it got captured in 1945 pretty much by the Soviet forces or the Yugoslavian partisans, which, I want to put this out here. That's saying something of how weird this is. Now, many people don't know the difference between a Yugo and a Kar98. Here's the thing. I'm going to show you all the difference between a Kar98 captured Yugo build or captured Yugoslavian stamp. In other words, like what I'm holding is a traditional Kar98, and here is a Yugo. This is actually a Yugo that's made in Yugoslavia. This is a German Kar98 that was captured in Eastern Europe. Now, I want to put this out here. There are many ways you can actually tell the difference. Two are right off the bat, just by looking at it. However, the most major way is actually by telling the difference between the bolt system and the switch. However, you got to get the said 8mm round. So I think the best way to understand the difference in my book is just by looking at it. In fact, there are three type of major ways just from looking at it. One is right here. See all this area here? This is a lot of bare metal. That's a Yugo. And guess what? You see a lot of wood on there. A lot more wood than you see on this one. That shows that's actually a Kar98. Now people will automatically say, oh, but Templar, that would have probably been taken off. Not so likely. Seeing that a fact, also, there's also with the sight system being slight bit different. There's also the fact on this, the bolt system. The reason I say the bolt system is kind of obvious. Look right here. On Kar98 captures, this is what you would see with this weird round piece here for the bolt to go into. And the fact is, you see a fully circular bolt system. While with Kar98 captured guns, this was still common. But with Yugos, they're not. They actually have the ball bearing cut in half. So that way it doesn't hit the wood. And the fact is, the Germans manufactured it this way to be extinct. And the fact is, it still was. So yeah, this is a traditional Kar98k. And anybody out there that's watching this video and you think you have a Yugo, go and see and take a look at a historical Yugo that was made in 1948 and compare it to whatever firearm you have. So that way you can tell the difference whether or not it actually is a Yugo or not. Because one, this is not a Yugo. It's a Kar98. I am actually very sick and tired of so many idiots not understanding the difference. So, yeah. But that's the thing. Now, a little bit of a brief history on the Kar98k. When it was first designed, many people didn't think that World War I would be, well, the trench war it was. Because originally, this was originally designed for, well, cavalry units. That's right, cavalry units originally used this. And the weird thing is, this was shipped out to a lot of countries from the original timeline. In fact, majority of these firearms were seen in parts of Turkey, Austria-Hungary, Poland. Well, pretty much Poland was still part of both Russia and Germany, but you get my point. This was actually seen in parts of Scandinavia, Russia, Italy, parts of France. Great Britain owned them, Americans owned them, Canadians owned them, a lot of people in the Mexican army owned them as well. These were even seen very far. Now, this is before World War I, so yeah, it's kind of obvious that this gun was standard issue mostly to third world countries as a, well, type of firearm. In fact, standard armies back then ended up using this as a standard issue bolt-action rifle for their armies, rather than using other firearms. Now, as I said, this was originally meant for cavalry, but apparently a lot of partisans or rebels ended up using these as, well, rifles. The fact is, you can actually use it as a rifle. Because no matter what, even if it has a barrel shorter, it's still able to hit a target for a good distance. And the fact is, World War I was originally thought to be like a Napoleonic warfare at first, so yeah. But the weird thing is, during World War I, it didn't end that well. So yeah. Now many people do want to know, though, is Templar, how great were these guns? And how far did they see use before World War I? Well, as I said, they were used as standard issue military type firearms for, well, countries that were in third worlds. Third world countries, such as parts of South America or Central America, such as Mexico, actually issued thousands of these to their army. And in fact, even Spain bought millions, apparently, from the Germany to, well, parts of their empire. And in fact, you also see many of these in parts of Southeast Asia. You also see also in parts of Middle East, Africa, and other places. But when World War I broke out and finally ended, a lot of these were still made. And the fact is, Germany started sending them to foreign countries. In fact, before the AK became the revolutionary symbol, this gun was the revolutionary symbol. It was a symbol of revolutions. In fact, it's actually stated that the infamous IRA, the original IRA, ended up using this first before they started to adopt the British-manufactured SMLE bolt-action rifles. Kind of obvious why. They couldn't trust the British firearms, as they put it. Which, I have to put this out here, even America ended up adopting something from the Kar98, or the Mauser design variation bolt-action. That's right. They copied from this in some way. What was that, you might ask? Simple. Their bolt-action system. The rolling lock. That's rolling bolt system. Now, dry fire. What do I mean by this rolling bolt system or rolling lock? Simple. That. It's armed the gun. Because see, the way the bolt system works, I don't know if I can get this in there, but as soon as you lift up the bolt, like so, it arms the round. Like there. Which is why some people, I don't even know how this is even possible, so some people actually think that this wouldn't set off the firearm. Well, it would. And the fact is, there are actually stated to have been at least 3 forms of safety on these rifles. But I'll get to that very soon. But apparently America ended up adopting that bolt system from none other and putting it in our, well, Springfield bolt-action rifles. And the Germans saw this and they started saying, hey, you stole that! And there was a lawsuit, but the Germans won, but World War I happened, so you can see what happened there. The weird thing is, from this, is the fact that, this is really hilarious, there are 3 forms of safety. One is, well, make sure there's no round in the chamber, obviously. And that was actually one of the major forms of safety. Because one, if there's no round in the chamber system, which I don't even know if you can actually do that. I've tried, let me see if I can do this. Don't worry, y'all, I'm not going to be firing the gun. I'm just going to issue my point to actually show you what I mean. Let's see if we can get it in there. Uh-oh. Hold on real quick. Apparently the bolt doesn't, stripper clips don't want to let go of the bullets. There we go. That was a little weird. But yeah, you're supposed to push down the rounds enough to slightly... There we go. Now, as I said, this is weird. Because apparently, now there isn't any round in the chamber. Let me check real quick. Yeah, no round in the chamber as we see. Which means I can pull the trigger like so. See? Nothing happens. That was one of the weird safety mechanisms that was attached to this. So yeah, let me just dump all the bullets out real quick, because this is weird. Yeah, I don't want to have a loaded round. Okay, there we go. Okay. Now yeah, that was actually one of the weirdest ideas the Germans came up with one of these weird stripper clips designs. It was weird to say the least, but it was effective, but I don't know why. But I really don't want to do that one again. So yeah, I hear many people already saying, Tumblr, you shouldn't have done that. Yeah, I hear many people already saying that. I know. But the thing is, I had to put my point there. But the major thing is, that was the weirdest design idea that they ever came up with. Don't know why. I really don't know why. It doesn't make any sense. But another one. Now, as I said, this one doesn't have any round in it whatsoever. Now, the second form of safety was the top safety system. The top safety system means that it was, well, pointing up. This means you could actually operate the bolt system without disarming it. Meaning it was a lot easier. You could just pull out all your bullets just in case if, well, when it comes to cleaning. The weird thing is, though, a lot of times over, many people don't realize this, is that this was actually used for one major reason. During warfare, for example, especially when you're fighting on the battlefield, such as, like, say, the Battle of Stalingrad, you're fighting house to house. Guess what? Somebody peeks around the corner, all you gotta do is switch it to the left and pull the trigger. That's it. So, yeah, that's the really cool thing. So just in case if an enemy pops out from one side of a corner, guess what? All you gotta do is smack it to the side like so, or thumb it to the side and pull the trigger. Then, there was what they call the parade lock. The parade lock means it's to the far right. Yeah. Left, if it's on the left, that means it's ready to fire. Up means it's on half safety system, means you're able to pull back the bolt system. But when you're on parade lock, as it's called, you can't pull back the bolt system. You can't pull the trigger, so yeah, it's meant for parade use. Which, in every picture I have ever seen on this firearm, whenever you see them marching or they're at a parade stance or whatever, it's always pointing towards their chest. Well, that's if they have it on their right shoulder, I mean. But yeah, this actually shows on how it would actually be used. So technically, that's actually really good about it. So yeah, why did they have that weird parade system? Kind of obvious. It was a lot easier and a lot more cheaper to manufacture it that way. And the fact is, it was just in case somebody accidentally didn't accidentally discharge a firearm in public. So yeah. Now, The really weird thing is, though, is how awesome these guns were. Now, I want to put this out here. These guns have actually been used for a long time. In fact, these things have actually been used from, well, since 1898, since it was made, to pretty much to the modern day. And the fact is, the Kar98k was actually the carbine version of the Mauser 98. The Mauser 98 being the infantry model. So, yeah, this was used by cavalry. Dry fire. I had to do that just in case. So, yeah. Now, many people do want to know, though, is, Templar, why are you just calling it a carbine? It's a bolt-action rifle. Nope, it's a carbine. Hence the term car in it. Now, some people would automatically look at this thing and think it's a rifle. Well, I don't know about that. Because one, it's kind of like, for example, because one, if you're a military guy, for example, you ought, especially from Germany and such, you would view this as a carbine. The same as you would view, well, the Carcano carbine that killed, rumored to have killed JFK, which I need to get one of those to prove my point that it probably is a hoax. What? I'm not the only one who thinks it. But I'll have to do that. I'll have to say that for another video sometime. But, yeah. So, many people would ask, Templar, why would this be viewed as a carbine? Well, it was shorter than the Mauser. And the fact is, well, one, the Mauser actually had a couple more inches of barrel. The weird thing is, though, these things are very rare to this day. And the fact is, the Germans kept using them after World War I. Pretty much because, one, there were hundreds of these things, and they issued them to more than a few countries. In fact, during the interwar periods in our own timeline, the Germans shipped these to countless countries. Mainly that of which were able to, well, fight against the Soviet Union if they ever thought of invading. In fact, the Polish, Ukrainian, as well as many other countries in parts of Eastern Europe ended up using one of these rather than the Soviet-made models. Well, that was before German efforts after the war ended up dying off. But the thing is, wherever the German Empire was, or formerly was, this gun was seen. In fact, it was seen in parts of Belgium, the Netherlands, Poland, Denmark. It was seen in Austro-Hungary, the former Austro-Hungarian Empire. It was seen in parts of the former Ottoman Empire. Hell, it was even seen as far as China, used by both sides during the Chinese Civil War, as well when they first, during the Sino-Japanese War. So, yeah, the Japanese ended up encountering this German-manufactured bolt-action rifle. In fact, it's actually stated that the Japanese copied from the German bolt-action rifle Mauser to design their own variation, which kudos on them. So yeah, it's kind of obvious that more than a few countries copied from the Mauser, one being America, one being Japan. So yeah, Germany makes really good firearms, you gotta admit. Now, what actually would have happened during the World War II period? Well, that's kind of obvious. During World War II, these are highly given to pretty much all of Germany's allies during World War II. If any of y'all don't know anything about Germany's Axis allies in Europe, I will leave links down below, especially for Armchair Historian's video on Germany's allies, such as Hungary, Austria, or Poland, or Ukraine, or even, Belarus, and so on and so on and so on. Because there are hundreds of countries out of which the Germans ended up making slight bit of allies, but more of semi-ally states. However, the weird thing also is, during World War II, prior before World War II, it was stated that the Italians ended up facing these guns from the Greek military, who used hundreds of these things. They probably got them from Turkey, I'm guessing, so that could explain it. But yeah, also Romania ended up issuing their military with these. So yeah, there were hundreds of these things in general. Now, though, I'm thinking this model might have been captured in 1944 or probably 1944 or 1943. Because one, it still has its front sight shroud. Now, here's the thing many people don't realize. The front sight shroud, as we see up on front, these actually tells you when this Kar98 was made. Because if it was like in 1944, for example, or like mid to late 1944 to 1945, it would have not had its front type sight shroud. Or as well, it would have been missing a couple of pieces. This, though, isn't missing its pieces, meaning this is a traditional Kar98k from Germany. Probably issued maybe prior before World War I or maybe World War II. It's hard to say. But as I said, the Germans ended up losing thousands of these to the Soviet Union and Western allies. So it wouldn't be no surprise that this ended up getting in the hands of Yugoslavia. In fact, the Yugoslavian military ended up issuing this as a national rifle until they designed their own in 1948 of the Yugo 48. But the thing is, the Yugo 48 would then be replaced by the AK, yada yada yada, or SKS, da 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 da. You get the whole point. But before the AK, this was the traditional gun of revolutions. And the fact is, it was used long after World War II, especially in Eastern Europe. In fact, Eastern European military units or Soviet satellite states used these as, well, the guard weapon or the weapon of the new Soviet military units for a while. In fact, it's actually stated that when the Soviet Union ended up invading Poland and taking over Eastern Germany and so on, wherever the Soviets ended up taking over on the map and such, here's the thing. Any of those satellite states would have had this as their, well, standard issue firearm before later replacing it with the AK-47 or SKS. So, yeah, you could see why. However, it was still being used for one major weapon in general. And that would be a sniper rifle. And especially if we remember our famous buddy from the film Saving Private Ryan, we actually see a sniper with a scope. That's because these guns were actually used as sniper rifles for a long time, which you can understand why. Now, I'm still trying to find a scope for this, a traditional Kar98 scope. Now, I hear many idiots already saying, oh, but Templar, just do what we do on PUBG. Just get a ACOG on it. Here's the thing. You put an ACOG on it, it looks ugly as hell, and you look stupid using it. Because, one, I'm not going to degrade this historical firearm with something that stupid looking. So, yeah, because, one, I love ACOGs, don't get me wrong, I love them on modern firearms, but on traditional firearms, use a historical firearm, dang it. Because, one, don't just use modern optics on historical firearms. It looks ugly, and you're going to ruin the value of the gun. Seeing the fact there's nowhere you can put it on these guns. So, yeah. But yeah, this is me just stating that. I'm sorry if I got a little personal with that, but you get my point. Now, the thing is, these guns would have also been used and issued to many people in the, well, Republic of Chinese Army and as well the Communist Forces of China. They would have used them against each other until the Soviets started to give the Communist partisans of China, you guessed it, Mauser guns and all these other Soviet firearms. And as well, a lot of these were also issued to both North and South Korea, Vietnam, and so on and so on. This is actually really hilarious. These guns have actually been seen all throughout the world. Because one, the Germans made millions of these things. And the fact is, there are still undocumented models which were throughout the entire centuries. So it's no wonder this thing's still being seen in some countries to this day as, well, a makeshift type weapon. However, as I said, the Soviets ended up giving a lot of these out, though, to major countries such as, well, to start Soviet revolutions. And the fact is, after World War II, the Germans had a lot of ammunition for this stuff and a lot of firearms for this stuff. So rather than the Soviets having to deal with, well, partisans or, well, rebel units who want democracy in Eastern Europe or as well Poland and such, well, guess what happened? The Soviet Union ended up taking all these captured firearms and sent them to various countries so that way they can spark, you guessed it, communist revolutions. In fact, majority of communist revolutions, parts of Africa, the Middle East, Asia, and as well in South America and Mexico, and including Cuba, actually ended up using these guns for a long time. Until they started to get the AK-47s and SKSs in. But the weird thing is, the Soviets just wanted to get rid of these guns. That's right. The Soviets thought, oh, that's going to be too much of a hassle. Let's just ship thousands of these somewhere else. The problem is, though, that's actually the hilarious thing. These sometimes backfired on them. I find this hilarious to this day. But yeah, you can also find these also in Afghanistan. In fact, I think I have actually heard stories of American soldiers being pinned down by a Afghan sniper using one of these guns. And it's no wonder why. This has the smoothest bolt action in history. It's no wonder this gun was used for so long. Now, the weird thing is, though, is kind of hard to explain. But one major reason I love this is because of its dead accuracy. In fact, why don't we see me actually, well, doing my gun run, shall we? Well, I hope you all like that little look-see on how to actually, well, fire this firearm. Now, in part of it, I was trying to do what the, by World War II by the end of World War II, what many German civilian units, in other words, many partisan German units or Wolfgang type units ended up doing, was the fact they had a lot of Kar98, or a lot of 8mm rounds, but what they didn't have were stripper clips. So a majority of them actually had to feed them in one by one, which was kind of the problem with that type of form. Now, you can also single load it, but I really wouldn't recommend doing that because one, it kind of scared me a little when it came to doing that. To do that, you just actually press it in, and it does itself. So, yeah. Whatever you do, don't shove it like an idiot into the tube that will actually jam the gun. So don't ever do that. So, yeah. But the really awesome part is also when we take it apart. Let's get into it. Alright guys, now let's start with our Kar98 disassembly. Now, how do you disassemble the Kar98? Well, one, always make sure that it's unloaded, as it is. Secondly, make sure it's in the upright safety mechanism safe. This way, it makes it a lot easier. Then, once you get to the far back, or when you're pulling it out, make sure you actually press this little detach piece right here. This actually helps detach the said bolt system. Okay. Now be careful when it comes down to this, because one, you got to be always careful, otherwise you can accidentally reset the spring system, which then you're going to have to go all the way back around, and this is where it kind of makes it very harder for you to fix it. I'm putting a glove on right now, because one, this little spring comes quite a pain when it comes to pulling it and pushing it. As we can see, we now got it to move. This will take a while. And there we go. There is our firing mechanism. Now this is actually the really cool thing about these bolt-action rifles. You actually see this beautiful design in the structure. So this is actually the really cool thing about them. Okay, now it comes to putting it back on. Here's the real tricky part, where you gotta remember where you actually first started. Just tighten it up, like so. Keep going until it fully locks, like so. Now, you put the locking piece back in, but always make sure that these pieces right here for your lug system are also in place, otherwise they won't go in. Place your bolt action like so, and there we go. Fully disassembled Kar98 and reassembled it in the process. As you saw, that was actually a quick one. That's why I kind of like bolt actions a little. These guns are still probably one of my favorites. And as well, I hear many people already saying, "Oh, Templar, wasn't your great-grandmother Jewish? You're holding a firearm that's used by the people who killed millions of Jews." Well, I wouldn't go that far, calling the Germans being the only ones doing that. Yeah, I see you Democrats. I see y'all hating Israel. What? Y'all thought I was going to talk about the Soviet Union? Hell, they're another idiots. But the thing is, I have to put this out here, the Kar98k wasn't exactly just used by, well, exterminating Jewish exterminating Nazis. These were also used by Jewish soldiers during the 6-Day War. And they were actually used by Holocaust survivors. That's right, y'all! Holocaust survivors during the time of the 6-Day War of Israel forces fighting against the Islamic military groups of, well, Syria, Lebanon, Iraq, and as well as Saudi Arabia, and even Egypt. And guess what? They used majority of these and not, you guessed it, Belgian-manufactured FNFALs. In fact, before the Belgian FNFALs ever made it to Israel, Israelites were actually using these. That's right. Jewish forces were using these mostly, not semi-automatic rifles. And the hilariously weird thing is, they are still somewhat using these as sniper rifles. I kind of love that to this day, because these things are dead accurate bolt-action rifles. There is also a weird story that apparently a Kar98 sportsman's model ended up getting into the hands of none other than one of Iraq's brutal dictators, Saddam Hussein. In fact, there is instant footage of him firing it off into the air and such. It wouldn't surprise me that he had one of these, because one, it's actually stated that Saddam Hussein ended up idolizing the Nazis for their eradication ideas. Yeah, I really don't like that guy in general. So, yeah. But in my entire review on this firearm, how would I rate it? Heavily badass. Because one, this is kind of one of the most awesome bolt-action rifles you can ever own. And as I said, anybody who supposedly has a Yugo, make sure you take a look at it real quick to make sure it is a Yugo or not. Because this, I thought was a Yugo until I looked further into it and found out it was a Kar98. So, yeah. Y'all, just take a good quick look and you can easily tell it's not a Yugo. Anyways, guys, this has been Celtic Templar. Hope to see y'all in the next one. Like and subscribe for more. And if y'all have any firearms y'all want me to take a look at in history, please let me know in the comments below. I'll be happy to get right into it. Anyways, guys, this has been Celtic Templar. Hope to see y'all in the next one. Have a great day, y'all.